get introduced to people within the stunt community. And I had also been a professional athlete, so I was working in barns riding horses, and I was a competitive equestrian and had, several other athletic abilities. I surfed my whole life and rode motorcycles from the time I was 16 and dirt bikes when I was a kid. And so naturally, as I met more and more stunt people, I was encouraged to try that route and decided to give it a shot and a full commitment, and then developed a career out of it. There was no like chance to re-record it. It was kind of a one-shot deal, and everything went great. And so he sat me down and he said, I know your heart's in acting, but acting is something you can do the rest of your life. This is something you want to really take a hold of right now while you're young and your body can do it. And you should really fully commit to that. But my first stunt contract was in 2016, I think. So going on 10 years. A lot. And I'd say the biggest changes are really that when I first came into the industry, we were kind of at the tail end of what my predecessors had and my mentors had experienced, which was a smaller stunt community, more job availability, and better contracts. They came out of a generation where you could pretty much guarantee that as long as you were sticking with it, you would afford a very comfortable, if not beyond necessary, comfortable life. That's really changed the heart of it all. And it's also left a lot of our performers without the ability to be taken care of. And I know there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, well, why do they need to be paid so much? Well, this is all we do, this is all we do. And when we're not doing it, we're training, we're learning, we're growing, we're writing, we're creating, we're coming up with new ideas. So you don't have to have, just deal with 12 Fast and Furiouses. Anytime a production cuts corners with us, it either is sacrificial in safety for preparation or qualifications for performers, or you're sacrificing the integrity of the completed project, right? I have observed that it's oftentimes the female characters who end up having their story sacrificed a little more. If you have 2 female characters and 6 male characters and they need to cut action out to make it cheaper, they're going to just cut the girls' action out before they're going to cut the men. So, and that's not always the case, especially if it's a woman or female dominated storyline. I think that's the industry is, it's a place where boundaries are often pushed and crossed, so and like I said, I think especially within the stunt community, we tend to have a lot of yes men. Yeah, it was a very unfortunate and sad situation for everyone involved. I think no one wants to hurt one of their colleagues. No one wants to hurt anyone on set. But accidents happen, and we're taking a big risk by doing what we do. And we have to operate as a team, and you have to leave your egos at the door, and everyone needs to communicate. But also, if you change something, you need to communicate it to the other team members, and you need to run a rehearsal. There's been families who have lost, sons and daughters in accidents like that on set, and they've gone after the studios to take responsibility, and they're just very well protected legally. So that's also why, these tech guys and these investors and these big money people who are taking over the studios now, that's why they don't want to take those risks. And that's where, we get back, circling back to AI and CGI. These are ways to eliminate liability, because a lot of people have had to move out of the state. A lot of people have had to find different jobs. People have lost their homes, their marriages, are living out of their cars. People have become homeless. It's impacted us in a really giant way. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. While you do want to fully commit, you want to make sure that you have created a landing space, just like you would on a high fall.
Hey everyone, this is Abhi from No-Budget Filmmaking Podcast, and here with me is Shock.
Hello, I'm Michelle Shock.
Hi. And those who don't know, we are recording this near Christmas, so it shows, not for me, but for her, but yeah.
In the spirit.
Yes. Shock, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. My name's Michelle Shock. I am a Hollywood stunt woman and actress. And yeah, I work in film and television and do a whole bunch of different stuff. I ride motorcycles, drive cars. I'm a water specialist. I work with weapons. I do brawls and fights and a lot of stunt doubling, and then often get to also portray my own roles.
Oh, that's amazing. So, how did you got into all of this?
Well, I've always been in the arts. When I was younger, I was in theater. I started in theater when I was just a kid, and I did musical theater and Shakespeare Junior and a lot of stuff for the civic centers. And eventually, that turned into working in film. Music videos were a popular thing to get into. I was living in Florida at the time, so there's a lot of those that shoot in Miami. And then eventually I got a role on a film. It was a horror film called Rockabilly Zombie Weekend. It was a lot of fun. And then through that, I started to get introduced to people within the stunt community. And I had also been a professional athlete. So I was working in barns riding horses, and I was a competitive equestrian and had, several other athletic abilities. I surfed my whole life and rode motorcycles from the time I was 16 and dirt bikes when I was a kid. And so naturally, as I met more and more stunt people, I was encouraged to try that route and decided to give it a shot and a full commitment, and then developed a career out of it.
Okay, so when did you started taking most of it seriously? Because I don't think it was a slight pivot. There would be a point in your life when you would be like, okay, this I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I actually remember the exact moment because it was a big deal for me. I'd always been somebody that had a lot of different things going on at once. And so it wasn't unlike me to kind of hop around from skill to skill, or interest to interest. And one day I was called by a stunt coordinator named Tony Vella in the Bay Area, and he had a motorcycle job for a commercial. It was for Virgin Holidays. We had to ride motorcycles in formation down the PCH for a live feed. And after we finished the job, we had a few things that kind of went haywire outside of the department, and just different variables on set, which always happens, which can be difficult to deal with. Mechanical stuff involving my bike, and we weren't really sure how it was going to go because it was, like I said, a live feed. So there was no like chance to re-record it. It was kind of a one-shot deal, and everything went great. And so he sat me down and he said, I know your heart's in acting, but acting is something you can do the rest of your life. This is something you want to really take a hold of right now while you're young and your body can do it. And you should really fully commit to that. So, I think I just decided in that moment, I'd never really fully committed to anything before, and this was the time to do it. So I did, and everything just kind of took off from there.
Hmm. And how is that? I didn't know how many years have you been into the industry?
In the industry, oh man, sorry, my dog is barking at stuff.
Yeah,
Hold on a second. I might have to lock her up just so we don't have a distraction with her.
it's fine.
Lulu.
I barely hear her, to be honest.
Okay, that's good. Um, so how many years have I been in the industry as a whole?
Yeah.
Um, I got into the film industry. I think my first job was in like 2008 or 2009. So a while. We're going in
Mhm.
2026 now. Um, but my first stunt contract was in 2016, I think. So going on. going on 10 years.
That's amazing. And what kind of movies have you worked on from lower level to the mid, high budget?
All of those. I've done independent films and friends' passion projects, and I've also worked on the big budget movies. And I think, a couple of the larger deals I've worked on for film would be Pale Blue Eye with Christian Bale, where I doubled Gillian Anderson. And then I
Mm.
just recently wrapped on Here Comes the Flood, which stars Denzel Washington and Robert Pattinson. I did doubling on that, so that'll be coming out, I believe, in 2026 or 27.
Okay, so you did work in high budget movies.
Yes,
Okay, so how much industry has changed in your opinion in those 9 years?
a lot. And I'd say the biggest changes are really that when I first came into the industry, we were kind of at the tail end of what my predecessors had and my mentors had experienced, which was a smaller stunt community, more job availability, and better contracts. They came out of a generation where you could pretty much guarantee that as long as you were sticking with it, you would afford a very comfortable, if not beyond necessary, comfortable life with just this job. And in that time, I've watched that change. You have less creatives in charge of what's happening with movie production and distribution, and you have more corporations and tech investors getting involved. And so there's less heart and passion and artistry in the decision making, and it's more about running numbers and investments. And that's really changed the heart of it all. And it's also left a lot of our performers without the ability to be taken care of. And I know there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, well, why do they need to be paid so much? Well, this is all we do, this is all we do. And when we're not doing it, we're training, we're learning, we're growing, we're writing, we're creating, we're coming up with new ideas. So you don't have to have, just deal with 12 Fast and Furiouses.
Yeah,
We were trying to invest our whole lives and our whole bodies. We risk our lives and our bodies as stunt people, especially. But now, I think there's kind of a collective brushing over of all that, where they go, well, we don't really need stunt people as much. We can kind of cut corners with CGI and AI more, and we can kind of fool the audience a little bit more without using real practical stunts and effects.
but it's clear as day when they're cutting corners.
Yes, I think they bank on audiences being stupid, or they're at least trying to train audiences to be stupid. A friend and I were actually just talking about this because uh, it's very frustrating for me. Even with writing, a lot of writing has gotten very lazy, and some of the big TV shows now are starting to feel like these cheap scripts that come out of China for vertical shorts. And if they're not banking on audiences already being easy to please, they're also just kind of hoping that they'll train them to be.
But it's a weird thing because as for scripts and everything, I see really, really good scripts and some of them being wasted. Like one of my favorite movies ever is Blade Runner 2049. One of the best movies ever made, but didn't got any recognition. So there's that too. So they're just thinking out of it's a business at the end of the day. And when movies like Lilo and Stitch makes almost 1 billion or more, if I'm not wrong, it was 1 billion. Why would anyone want to commit for another Blade Runner, if you know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think Blade Runner, while it's a fantastic story, it's also older. It's for aimed at an older audience and their nostalgia. Where Lilo and Stitch is still very popular with kids. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I think when Lilo and Stitch first came out was popular with me. But now it still continues to be popular with children. It's one of those storylines that continues to be loved through the generations, and so you can bank on those. But at one point in time, Lilo and Stitch had to be new. That was a new story that was told. So kids are a really great target audience. If you get kids hooked early, then they become adults like us who still love that story. And but Blade Runner's a little it's different, I think Lilo and Stitch speaks to a lot of different types of people where Blade Runner speaks to a really select audience. So but yeah, I agree. These corporations, they don't want to take a risk on a box office flop. It's very expensive to make movies now. So instead of taking risk, they just kind of run the numbers and think, well, what's gonna pay off in the long run, and that's business. I don't want to say it's show business, but it kind of is now. That is what it is.
Yeah, and it's weird because well, I'll talk about that later. The reason I was late, it's because I was watching Avatar Fire and Ash.
Oh, nice. Is it great?
It's an experience. This one I guess is one of the weakest ones,
Oh, I haven't seen it
unfortunately.
yet, but a lot of my friends were in it and worked on it, or were, helping direct the action on it, and
Oh,
um, yeah, they were all very proud of it. So, we're a buddy and I are actually going to go on Christmas Day to go see it in 4D,
yeah,
in the interactive movie theater, which is fun because the original Avatar I saw when 3D was new, and I saw 3D IMAX was like a new concept, and so that was a really cool experience to see it on.
yeah.
And now 4D is the new concept, so it's fun that that'll be the first thing I see on 4D. But yeah, I don't know. I can't comment on it yet because I haven't seen it. They use a lot of really high tech stuff, and I know that they were really committed to using real people and utilizing, motion capture technology to not lean so heavily on AI replacement, which I think was really important. We have so much talent out there, and there's a realness to it when it's us. I can tell the difference. AI is getting good though. There's
Yeah.
some questionable AI out there.
There's a lot of AI out there. I did an experiment once for Halloween. I didn't had I was late and I was busy with work, so I didn't had any costumes. So I just took my own picture and edited it with AI and posted online, and none of my friends could catch it.
I did a similar thing recently, but I told everyone it was AI, but I used AI to generate photos of myself, and you really can't tell the difference. It looks like an editorial photo shoot. But I put in the caption there letting everyone know, like, hey, this is where we're at now. 2 years ago, you'd look at the eyes and you would know something was off. Now it captures that gleam that it couldn't capture before, and that's terrifying because that's just in 2 years. What is it going to be in 10 years?
Yeah, and also the data centers and all that, they are just eating up power. Like one data center takes power for almost a small town. So there's that.
Right, and the water usage, which I never even thought about until the other day. I saw an article on it, where AI's used up as much water as an actual company that bottles it, and it's just kind of unbelievable how wasteful it could potentially be. Uh, we don't need it. It's just convenient. But we have talented photographers and actors and athletes and stunt performers and movie makers, and we don't need it. It's just convenient and it's fast. But fast and convenient, it's cutting corners. It's not necessarily in the long run the best idea. I always think about, actually, um, a while ago, I owned a farm, and when we were building it, I was working with a family member to design stuff for it. And I remember that they decided they wanted to cut costs and try a like quick solution type deal. And it ended up in the long run costing us, 3 times as much money as it would have been to just use the reliable product that had been on the line for, years. We ended up having to, it was a footing for a horse arena. We ended up having to scrape it all out and totally replace it again with the other product that I had originally said we should use. And it was a hard lesson in that, cutting corners might seem like a good idea in the short term, but in the long run, it causes more damage. And then you have to go back and clean it up, and then you end up doing the thing you tried not to do to begin with.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of cutting corners, are they cutting corners in the stunt work too? Are they making it less safe for you or any way by cutting corners?
Well,
Or
anytime you cut corners with stunts, it definitely makes it less safe. But I would say, a lot of people you hear people wanting big action for little money, but you can't, you can do it safely, but you ultimately are cutting into the ability to pay the right people and have the right equipment and afford the right preparation, whether that's rehearsal times or pre-vises, and that ultimately, will affect things. But I would say for the most part, um, the bigger productions know that, but um, yeah, I think anytime a production cuts corners with us, it either is sacrificial in safety for preparation or qualifications for performers, or you're sacrificing the integrity of the completed project. Right? You're not going to have the action look as good if the actor that doesn't do that every day tries to do it themselves. Or if they cut the action completely, you just have, it's not as great of a story told. So you're sacrificing something, by doing that ultimately.
yeah, and are you seeing it more and more lately? Are they cutting corners more, or
I don't know if
is
they're
it?
cutting corners as much as they are just cutting things. Like they're cutting stunt teams. They're trying to get cheaper performers by, outsourcing out of the country. And they're cutting scripts. I was supposed to go to a job in Mexico at one point, and then that got cut because the action itself got cut, so that particular character had less action, which ultimately changes the energy of that story told. So yeah, I would say in the last 5 years I've seen a lot more of that, and my mentors have probably seen that on an even larger scale.
Hmm, okay, and it's a dangerous trend because I thought after John Wick, I thought there was after John Wick there was a wave of new movies which were more, um, to put it crassly, like stunt porn because it was just so raw and everything was there without any show offiness. But this is I didn't know that they're cutting the actions too.
Yeah, scripts get cut down. I have observed that it's oftentimes the female characters who end up having their story sacrificed a little more. If you have two female characters and six male characters and they need to cut action out to make it cheaper, they're gonna just cut the girls' action out before they're gonna cut the men. So, and that's not always the case, especially if it's a woman or female dominated storyline. But if not, that's usually the first thing to get cut. And um, yeah, I think it totally depends on who's in charge ultimately at the end of the day and what their goal is.
Hmm. Okay. You said it doesn't happen often, but is it because I have talked to a lot of women in the industry and there's always one case like one of the stunt women said it's always like whatever they wear, it's for some reason they don't have enough space for padding for some unknown
Oh,
reason.
yeah. That's all the time. I mean, I've gotten really lucky,
Mm,
but I've also had times where my clothing is so tight that you couldn't fit anything in there. But I've been really fortunate, really lucky that I've had most of my stunts have been inside a vehicle or, um, they've been in the water, so you don't need padding. Or I've been able to fit pads, but more often than not, uh, we're in like costumes and wardrobe that are little,
yeah.
skimpy, and very feminine, and so there's not a lot of room to put anything there. I have quite a few friends who have done stunts naked. I
Wow.
had a friend that did a naked stair fall. But men
Mm,
do it too. It's just far less often. Um, so yeah, I think it's just that comes down to the writing, that
mm.
comes down to the writing, and then the whole concept that like sex sells. So we need our women characters to look sexy and revealing, and I've pretty much turned down every single nude role that's ever been offered to me. I personally just don't think I need it for my career. Power to the people that do it. But if I'm gonna, beat myself up on set, I prefer to be able to put on pads. We do ultimately have a say in what we choose to do. I think that we're conditioned to be yes men, and so it's less likely for people to say no to things like that. And so oftentimes we just get put in these situations that are not necessary for the storytelling, but um
Uh,
I think that just comes down to ethics, right?
yeah, but I'm going down
Hmm.
my memory lane if I see any stunts naked by anyone. So that's why I'm just like, I don't know
Yeah, I don't
why.
remember what the thing was, but someone I know had to do a naked stair fall. So
Oh,
but it
jeez.
happens. Yeah, it happens.
That must have hurt so bad.
Yeah, they were pretty bruised.
Stairfall.
I mean, we already get bruised from those things, but I think that's the industry is it's a place where boundaries are often pushed and crossed, so um and like I said, I think especially within the stunt community, we tend to have a lot of yes men. People are afraid to say no to things because then they don't think they'll get hired again, or they're afraid to stand up for things because then they'll be seen as like a shit stir, and or that they're rocking the boat and then they won't get hired. And that could be true, but for every person that won't hire you, there are people who appreciate you and will hire you. So it's also a matter of finding like-minded individuals who are also creative and support what you do and want to keep you safe and don't ask you to let go of your own morals and values and ethics.
So, what's your outlook on that? Should we say no or should we say yes all the time?
You say no.
Okay.
You say no, especially with something like motorcycles. You know, people die doing what we do, and people get other people hurt on set doing what we do. Not if they're good at it, but if they lie about it, or if they step outside of their lane and they try to call the shots on something they're not qualified for, and that is dangerous because you're letting ego and your perception of your reputation get in the way of being a human, which our responsibility as a human is to keep each other safe, um movies aside. So it's very dangerous. I'm a motorcycle person, and I can wheelie, but I can't guarantee that I'll hold a wheelie from point A to point B. So when I've been called to do a wheelie, I've just been honest. I say I can get the nose up on the bike, but I can't promise you how long it'll stay up. If you're looking for someone who can really control a wheelie, then here's three other people I know who are excellent at it. And that's an opportunity for them to work. That's not the right job for me. But if you want me to do serpentines, if you want me to do high speed, if you want me to ride a cruiser, if you want me to ride through a canyon, if you want me to weave in between traffic, carry a passenger, ride in a formation, any of those things, ride different multiple types of terrain, I'm perfectly qualified for that. There's a lot of other things that I can offer as a performer. So if someone I know is better and safer at doing a wheelie, I'd rather them have the job.
Yes, because again, you don't want to destroy equipment. Like
Right.
one thing came to my mind as like two incidents, and I was recently, I don't know how they popped up in my feed, but there was this one stunt where the stunt woman in the Dark Knight Rises accidentally broke the camera
Oh,
by
that
an
wasn't
accident.
her fault. That I know that woman, and she's an extremely talented motorcyclist. And actually, I worked with her. We co-coordinated on a motorcycle film together, and it was a like a dirt bike desert motorbike movie. And her name's Jolene, and I've seen that clip time and time again. And if you watch it, the camera was where it shouldn't have been.
Oh,
He moved into her line. She was driving a large vehicle down a staircase with extremely wide tires,
yeah.
and she was in perfect control of the bike. And when camera should have pulled away and out of her line, he didn't move. And there's that happens. Sometimes camera's supposed to move and camera doesn't move. And then the stunt performer takes the fall for it, which is nonsense. And another great example of that, I forgot the title of the movie. There was another famous stunt woman who was doing a convergent shot on a motorcycle with a camera car, and camera was supposed to come at her and lift and go over and come back down, and camera operator didn't lift. So when she came under it, she was trusting her team to lift when they should lift, and they didn't lift, and the camera hit her and ended her stunt career. She didn't die, fortunately, but she was severely maimed and changed the path of her life for the rest of her life. Crippled her, damaged her spine, and there's been several incidences of that. I've even had that happen on a car commercial where we were coming around a canyon corner, like a corner and to a straightaway, and they're coming at me. I've got the only way I can go to the right is off the cliff, to the left is into them, so I can only go straight. Camera arm was supposed to lift and glide over the car. Camera arm didn't lift. And I tapped the brakes of my vehicles. It dipped my car down. And so instead of it going through my windshield, it skipped across the top and it cracked the glass on the top of the car. And when we got done, their response to that was like, oh shit, the driver of the vehicle for the camera car was going out. I was telling him lift, 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 and he just didn't lift in time. But luckily I saw it and I saw it happening, and my instinct was to dip the car down. So that's where people think that for commercial driving, doing precision driving, which is often stunts. When you have a camera car, that's stunts. That it's easy. Oh, you're just driving. Well, no, we're working with camera car. There's a lot involved. So in a moment like that, had I maybe not had the reflex to do that, he would have gone through my windshield and he could have hit me, like in square in the face. So um, there's a lot involved, and sometimes what looks really easy and really simple is actually highly complicated and very dangerous.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it was Resident Evil final chapter.
Yes, yes, it was
Yes.
Resident Evil.
I literally heard about it the day before yesterday, and she had her arm amputated because
Yep.
of that. Jeez.
Yep. Terrifying. She's lucky to be alive. It was a very unfortunate and sad situation for everyone involved. I think no one wants to hurt one of their colleagues. No one wants to hurt anyone on set. Um, but accidents happen, and we're taking a big risk by doing what we do, and we have to operate as a team, and you have to leave your egos at the door, and everyone needs to communicate. But also, if you change something, you need to communicate it to the other team members and you need to run a rehearsal. You know, if you rehearsed it a different way and then you change it at the last second and then just run camera, you're taking a big risk. And that's where you're getting into like how many hours of the day are you running and like what does production want to pay? And that's where cutting corners is an issue. And you know, and then the studios are ultimately responsible for that. But you know, I don't know if you ever tried to sue a large studio, but it's
Some,
quite difficult from what I hear. And I don't think she had a lot of luck in the beginning with it. And, you know, there's been families who have lost, you know, sons and daughters and in accidents like that on set. And they've gone after the studios to take responsibility. And they're just very well protected legally. So, and financially.
yeah, obviously they're big companies. They have
Right.
whole team of people, I'm assuming. So
But that's also why, you know, these tech guys and these investors and these big money people who are taking over the studios now, that's why they don't want to take those risks. And that's where, you know, we get back, circling back to AI and CGI, you know, these are ways to eliminate liability, even
yeah,
though it
mm,
also eliminates creativity and, you know, the human touch. It ultimately ends up avoiding a lawsuit, avoiding harm, avoiding liability and injury and death. And to them, that makes sense. I, outside of stunts, am also, you know, involved with and continually being educated in you know, financial investments. And it's tough because sometimes I'll switch between the two brains. You know, I can turn the creative brain off and go, well, if I were a big CEO in a company and I was in charge of billions of dollars and I knew millions were at risk potentially and a reputation of the company, I'd probably make the choice to cut those things, you know? And so I understand financially speaking, I understand why they do what they do, but artistically speaking, so,
yeah.
you know, artistically speaking, I want to see art made and I want to see action and I want to see people doing amazing things because that's what makes art amazing. So,
But if you think about it, right, if we have to make everything safer for people, more and more safer, what do you think about the motion capture technology? Because I think that's the really good middle ground for all of these things. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, for video games, you do perform stunts, but they are really, really safe because you're not actually falling from high ground and everything, if I'm
it's a
not wrong.
closed environment. Well, here's the thing. I think it's amazing and I like video games. I play them. I think that motion capture is phenomenal and when you look at what they do with motion capture on things like Avatar, they're also still doing real stunts. You know, the stunt coordinator and second unit director for those films, Garrett Warren and his you know, colleague partner, Steve Brown, the two of them are phenomenal. But if you go train with them, you're gonna learn how to take contact with a hit because they also want you to be a tough athletic stunt performer. And they want realistic while they also want to utilize cool technology to bring otherworldly aspects to true action. And I think that is the real kind of middle ground there that they found. They're still really doing, you know, risky stunts and cool stunts, impressive stunts. Mocap the stunts in mocap are not impressive to me in like gaming mocap. It doesn't interest me as someone that's like, man, wow, like how, you know, was that cool? Did they do, you know what I mean? I'm more invested in wanting to see the BTS of something else. But the the creation of characters that mocap artists do, the movement is fascinating. And the artistry that goes into creating these characters and becoming all these different creatures and bringing to life these ideas around, you know, fantasy worlds, that's amazing. So I think that's where mocap is impressive and is cool. Is it's like imagination, you know, really coming to life. So, but as far as, you know, stunts go, I wouldn't say mocap stunts, unless you're speaking of things like Avatar, are truly stunts. Um, would I rather see someone pretend to do a high fall on a green screen or a blue screen and, or, in a mocap vault, or would I rather see, you know, my friend Troy jump out of a helicopter at 120 feet? The
Yeah.
helicopter sounds way more exciting. And
Yeah.
it's way cooler. And I think most people would rather see that. At the end of the day, it's more riskier, but boy, does it bring in an audience, In the 90s, but I mean, it's still, I mean, we just saw it in The Fall Guy, the helicopter jump. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think more so now we see decelerators being used, or green screens, but low falls are more typical, 30 feet and below. Um, we don't see as much of the high fall action as we used to.
Yeah. And only people who are doing these death-defying stunts are Tom Cruise, and it's only because he's Tom Cruise and he has the backing and he has the financial
Well, he owns
backup.
that franchise, so he has the ability, if he gets hurt, to pause everything and heal and then come back to filming. But I mean, that doesn't take away from the death defying stuff that our stunt performers are doing, because they're very much still doing these things, especially overseas, especially with
Overseas,
cars.
the car stunts, I think they're still active in most ways, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, very much so.
Yep. And as far as the foreign film industry is concerned, if you look at Asian, because I am from, my parents are from Asia, so there's that. But there's not a lot of pay for those guys, unfortunately. I'm not
Mm-mm.
sure. I'm not sure.
No, they're paid change, pocket change, and they don't get residuals, and they don't have a union protecting them either. We still have a lot of fire stunts that we do, water stunts, cars, motorcycles, big fights. Um, we still, people are still doing falls, but not quite the same as the big giant ones. But filming has gone overseas, because it is cheaper to get the stunt performers out there and film out there, and there's less restrictions and less things holding them back from pushing boundaries. We have not had that much work here in the States because of that, because Hollywood has been outsourcing.
But that hurts, yeah, hurts the business here, the people who are living here. I live in LA, so I know. So it is hurting people there because the people who are filming here right now is just like TV and what's the other one?
Vertical
Independent.
shorts. Vertical shorts are the popular thing right now here in LA.
So it doesn't it make sense? Is there any moment going on or any chatter about it to get the
Oh yeah.
filming business here?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's tough because Hollywood's very liberal, and so of course there's definitely a lot of pushback against the Trump administration, but he's also talking about doing these competitive tariffs that would potentially bring filming back to the States. So I think everybody's just kind of at this point where we're like, whatever will work, if that does it, then great. Because, a lot of people have had to move out of the state. A lot of people have had to find different jobs. People have lost their homes, their marriages, are living out of their cars. People have become homeless. It's impacted us in a really giant way, and I believe that that was also the impact the strike had on us. The strikes pushed production out because it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, you don't want to sign the contracts. Well, then we'll go over there. We'll just film there. It's cheaper, anyways. There's no loyalty to staying in Hollywood. It's more of the creatives' input to say, well, Hollywood, this is the heart of it. This is where it should stay. But an investor will go, I don't care. I can do business in Hungary. I could do business in Morocco. I could do business in France or Rome, or we don't need to be here to make movies. So whoever can come, and whoever can't, you can't. Oh well, sorry, and that's the mindset of these investors. But it's hurting the rest of us who have, made our lives here to commit to this. Most people don't move to Hollywood without a full commitment to this career.
Absolutely right. But again, it's just the tariffs because I heard about the same thing about tariffs, but it's not affecting that much because they have to pay $10 instead of 8. It doesn't matter much.
Yeah, that doesn't make a big difference for them. Yeah, it would have to be some very extreme measure, an extreme tariff, and that would be more in the vein of like what we saw with the automotive industry, when competitive tariffs were placed on the automotive industry. And so that brought production back and that helped build Ford and, all of our American motor companies.
Yeah. And the recent Newsom had a couple of bills. I'm not sure how effective they are. One of them was not to use AI. You cannot use AI. And the other one was bringing back production business here, but I'm not sure if it worked at all.
I don't know how long it takes for those things to be put into place either. So that's the other question. But I do know that we have a couple of, initiatives going, trying to bring filming back to LA. And they have different ideas in place regarding kind of all encompassing permits that would make it easier for films. They won't have to jump through a million hoops in order to get, permission around the city and the counties to film, or to, deal with where they place their extras and their trailers, and where they bring in catering. And that, if that gets, rolling, then I imagine that that will make it more admirable. I'm very curious to see what comes of what seems to be a consolidation between all the studios. If Netflix is taking over Warner Brothers, and then I know there's been some talk about Apple consolidating and taking over Disney. And, these are very big moves regarding investments. It takes some time for those things to happen and to see what they'll lead to. So we're kind of in this transitional period where we've all got to figure out how to survive the wait. I don't think that it's going to kill it completely. I just think that it's going to reshape things and how they're done. And those of us who can live through it and survive it are going to have to adapt to a new way of being in the industry.
But at first I thought I think the best company to acquire Warner Brothers would be Apple because they didn't have anything to begin with and they were really picky about what they put out. And some of them were really good. Like, for example, Severance and what's the other show was Ted Lasso. These two
Mm-hmm.
shows were really good.
That Ted Lasso did great.
So that's what I was thinking about. Like Apple TV would be the best one to acquire Warner Brothers, but with Netflix, oh, I have no clue. And also Paramount wants to take over it, then it would be just, yeah, I
Paramount,
don't
I
know.
don't think Paramount would have been good. I don't know. Netflix is tough because their streaming contracts are terrible. And I think that they really have the thought process of just keeping movies in the theaters long enough to qualify for an award for the Academy. But it would be sad to see the age of theaters end, and that's a possibility. Um, Theaters are pretty empty these days. I live in an area where our theaters are pretty busy, fortunately. But yeah, I don't know. We're kind of in this limbo, I would say. And I think people were thinking, oh, it'll be over in a year or two. But things like this take time. You know, it could be 10 years before we see things really truly stabilize into whatever it's evolving into.
Yes. It's funny you mentioned theaters being empty because the one that I left, the one that I saw, Avatar Fire and Ash, it was only three people, including me. So,
Yeah, that's rough. The theaters I go to here on my side of town in Ventura County, they're
oh,
pretty busy. Um, you know, I think in areas where there's more families, maybe it's busier because people want to get their kids out of the house. And people want to get out of the house and get away from their kids on date night. So I think we see um, more traffic, more foot traffic in the theaters here for that reason. So it makes me wonder too, like I when I've gone home to Florida, I'm from Orlando, and I go to the theaters there, they're really busy too. So in these more suburban areas that are more family centered, I think the theater is actually quite important. Um, but I do see audiences craving that more, you know, in certain areas, and I see live shows being much more popular now. And you know, even my daughter, who's 8, has been asking to go to see musical theater and to go see. She wants to go to Shakespeare plays. I've not pushed it on her. It was very much an integral part of my upbringing, but now she's genuinely curious in her own right for those things. So I think younger generations are craving real. It's fascinating for them to see people in front of them doing these things. They know computers can do them. They know AI can do them. But to see a person performing and relaying emotion and creating characters and action, that's fascinating for them. So even if, you know, let's say in the next 10 years, things become predominantly AI and CGI and virtual and augmented reality, there's going to come a time where that flips, you know, and I've seen it, you know, I just recently in this past year converted to Catholicism, and I see a big trend in people seeking out more traditional uh kind of old school lifestyles and approaches to religion. And I think that's a backlash to things becoming more modernized. So I think that that's the natural human instinct is when something goes too far, then they go, ah, I miss the old way, right? So I imagine something similar will happen with entertainment. It'll go too far into being synthesized and digitalized, and people are going to want real. They're going to want to see humans doing real things.
yeah. Give me a second to turn on the lights. Like that.
It got dark.
Yeah, but I think I think people. You're still there?
Yes, 1 second.
Yeah, yeah. Take your time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was saying that I think people are not. I live in Ventura County too. I live in Simi Valley.
Oh,
So
nice. You're not far from me.
yeah. So what I was saying, what I was seeing is that the theaters are people are going to theater, but they are more selective.
Right. Well, and here's the other part of that. If they're not super excited about what's out, why are they going to go spend 20 something dollars at the theater? They'll just wait for it to come out on streaming. And I even catch myself doing that. My daughter and I are kind of committed to going and seeing good movies in the theater first.
Yeah.
Um, But the other problem of that is if a theater only shows a movie for a couple of weeks and I don't happen to have availability to go then I'm forced to watch it in streaming, which also sucks. So, but you know, we're guilty of, you know, maybe something comes out and then we go, I don't really want to go to the theater to see that. I'll wait for that to come out at home. And I have like a 100-inch movie projector. It's
Oh, whoa.
a daytime projector in my house. So even if I have these curtains open, like I can watch a movie at home and it feels like I'm at a theater, except I can be in an elf onesie on my couch with my dog and, my cat. And she's right here, actually. It's a
Oh,
kitty.
okay.
And
Okay.
and I can watch my movies here and order sushi. But um, I do try to be really conscientious of supporting most things that come out to movie theaters.
Yes. And I think, don't you think the beast the streaming sites have become, it's because of the pandemic. I cannot use the word because
Oh
YouTube
yeah.
will kill me, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, it is. The lockdowns I think impacted a lot more than just you know, the theater companies. I think we're also seeing people having been increasingly antisocial. I myself all of a sudden went from like really loving always going to events and being in crowds of people to now I'm like, I'd rather deal with a room with like 5 or 10 people, or even better, one or two, maybe three, than to be in a crowd. So, um, but we're slowly coming back from that. We definitely, our generation has been impacted mentally and emotionally in multiple ways. And, streaming allowed us to be kind of victim to our vices in that way.
Yeah, and I think it's because of, yeah, if that epidemic or pandemic didn't happen, I think the streaming services would be a niche medium. But I first myself uh, got the subscription of Netflix, Prime, all of that within 3 months of the lockdown. So I get it. I think that's why they just become this giant pieces, the giants in the media industry, so that
Oh yeah.
um okay, since you have to go at 5, before I let you go, if someone new is coming to you, right, and someone new, especially a young girl, let's say your daughter wants to follow your path, what would you say to her and train her in a way so that she would be safe and move ahead in the career?
First, I would tell her to go to college and get an education. And I know there's this whole trend of people going, oh, college and an education aren't worth anything. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I can counter that by telling you how many people I know in my industry who are now out of work and are in their, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they literally don't know what else they can do now. And they're at a loss and they have no backup plan and they have no other path they can go. So at least a formal education opens up various other paths for you. And let's say you finished your schooling and you're qualified, you went to vet school or you went to psychology degrees, you got your master's in psychology, and you could at least update, you know, 10 years later, 20 years later, you can update what you know with modern medicine. You don't have to completely complete all these degrees all over again, but you can update your education and then you have another path to pursue. Um, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. While you do want to fully commit, you want to make sure that you have created a landing space, just like you would on a high fall. You wouldn't jump off a 100-foot roof without something to catch you, right? You have to fully commit to the jump. So you have to fully commit to stunts. You have to fully commit to acting if you want to work in this field. But you should also have something prepared for you to land on if for some reason something goes wrong. And people go, "Oh, well, I don't want to manifest something." That's bullshit. You're not going to manifest anything. You cannot control God's will in that way. What's going to happen is going to happen. You could have the most fulfilling career of your life, and then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from underneath you because the industry goes overseas. Um, or everyone in your department gets fired and laid off, or your, studio gets bought out. Whatever it is, you're not in control of that grand scheme, no matter how talented you are, no matter how smart you are. So just like you would diversify your portfolio as an investor, you should diversify your portfolio as a human. So that would be my first piece of advice, that before you do anything, make sure you have a couple of routes, plan B's, plan C, plan D, in place in case something happens. Supplemental income is very smart. If you're a martial artist and you're pursuing stunts, have the ability to teach, be a private instructor. If for me, I came into stunts as a professional equestrian, so, and I had horses of my own. And so I ran a side business where I trained actors and stunt people, and I taught individual lessons. So when we shut down in the pandemic, I was able to provide training and a mental health space for people to get out of their house and be around therapeutic animals. Um, and, so having that supplemental income is smart. And, know your fundamentals, have a solid base in your fights for film and martial arts. Take care of your body, make rest as vital and important as your training. Don't train 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without a break and run your body down and burn the candle at both ends. You need to also take care of your mental health, take care of your physical rest, and preserve your body. you know Save when you do make money, when you get that gig, and be honest about how you get that gig. Don't lie about your skills. Get an honest gig, make a big check, invest. Don't go spending all of your money. And when I say invest, that doesn't mean blow all your money on a drift car or spend all your money on expensive training. Take a portion of it and do that, but then put away, investments, a Roth IRA and CDs and, different, types of savings accounts that'll generate you an income. Um, learn about money, learn about all of that stuff because it's important. And it might be the very thing that saves your ass if something goes wrong or if you get injured or you have to kind of pivot. And just as we would in martial arts doing combat, we learn to pivot, we learn to adjust our line, we learn to move with our opponent. We have to kind of do the same in life. So be prepared to pivot. And it's good, you don't want to be a one trick pony. It's good to have at least one really special skill you're good at, but you need to also diversify your skill set. So if you're a horse specialist, go take some diving classes, go take a martial arts, go do some driving clinics, and more seat time the better. Don't do a couple of lessons and then call yourself a professional. You need the hours and the seat time to be acquired in order to be a real expert at something. So diversify, diversify, diversify. That's what I would say. Diversify your portfolio financially, diversify your skill sets as a performer, diversify your network, as in the people who you create with and you communicate with, and diversify your life in that you can love this and make it the main thing you like to do, but have other things that make up you, have other things that uh, help you enjoy being alive and being yourself, so that if this takes a pause or derails somehow, you're not losing your identity with it.
Yes, absolutely. Any future projects that you want to mention here?
Well, I would say go see Here Comes a Flood when it comes out. And what else is going on? There's one called The Hymn, which was a horror movie that I worked on doubling earlier this year with what's his Ryan Felipe. Um, and yeah, everything else is out already. So those are the two ones coming up.
Okay, what is out already recently that we can stream or watch on theater?
Oh, I think Pale Blue Eye is still out if you haven't seen that yet.
Hmm.
Fatal Attraction on Paramount Plus. If you haven't seen that series, it was a limited time series, and that one was really good. And oh, Rescue High Surf. The first season came out last year, and I think Fox unfortunately was not going to renew it. But it's a really fun show with a very talented crew in Hawaii, and I play Vanya in episode 3.
Hmm.
And off the top of my head, that's all I can think of right now.
Okay.
Please, 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 I'm begging you. Please. I'm desperate. I don't know what to do. Please subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe for more content.
Subscribe to my channel.